Hey, I'm Natalie Callback and I'm here with John DuVal. I'm super excited to see you again. John, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Excited to see you as well. How's everything going?
Yeah, it's been, I don't know how many weeks now that we are
Yeah,
in
really.
this situation. So John is an amazing watercolor artist. I mean, you do other media too. You have been doing a lot of acrylic paint lately, which is
Yeah,
amazing too.
thank you.
And but I have taken a class with John a while ago, and oh my God, I love his watercolor landscapes and also know his acrylic landscapes. Very very cool. Oftentimes city landscapes actually. And also, John is part of Creative JumpStart. So, for those of you who have been taking Creative JumpStart, that's he's part of it and has an amazing tutorial on there. And also, John is here in New Jersey. So, John, now that you're kind of confined,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you. Where are you, and what was your artist situation on how you worked before COVID-19?
Yeah. Yeah, so now I'm in Union City, and I have a studio in Jersey City downtown. So I was going there several times a week, like 4 times a week on the weekends, and getting paintings done pretty much every time I was there. I would complete something and then work on something else, and it was just a nice little environment where I didn't have to keep it as nicely, right? Like it was, I can have stuff set up and ready to go and be a little messy. And it was a private area, so I still have it, but I haven't been able to go quite often because it's just a very dense area. It's I guess it'd be putting yourself at risk to catching a virus or exposing others to the virus if you're just kind of business as usual over there. So what I did was I grabbed some materials a couple weeks ago and brought them home. But I have a very small apartment, so I'm really just using like my kitchen table now for paintings. I normally paint things like 18 by 24 or a little bit bigger, and now it's everything is like 14 by like 11 or something like that. So that has been the biggest change, is like picking a new spot to paint, right? Like a lot of people can just, oh, I'll just pick out some materials and put it on my table. But for me, it's like I just like I like having some area to stand around and walk around in. But I guess the biggest change is not going outside to paint as much.
Oh yeah, you do a lot of
Yeah,
outside painting too,
yes,
right?
I like to do plein air painting, but that hasn't been too common for me lately. And then part of that was due to the weather, but also now obviously the virus, and then just making smaller scale things. But watercolor actually is perfect for that
Mm.
because it's very portable. So I left all my acrylics at the studio, but now my watercolors are already set up, so I can just do something within like last night or 2 nights ago. I spent like an hour on a sketch, watercolor sketch, and it was a nice little sketch. But it's I set up in 10 minutes, and then I broke it down in 10 minutes, and it was easy, and it dried, so I didn't have to like worry about where to put these things to dry. But it is a different methodology for sure, right? Because the subject matter could be whatever, but you can only really do something small,
How do you
and
feel
that's
like I know that you have your studio has a really nice window that you sometimes post pictures of your amazing view from there too. How is it like working in your kitchen with light
yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean, I love natural light, so even when I was painting, I would try to paint during the day and get a lot of good natural light. Now I have good light in here, but I can't do much after like 6 or 7.
hmm,
So I try to do everything, during the day or afternoon, but it still stays nice till like 6 or 7. I have plenty of light here, so I try to do that. Otherwise, I'm using like a kitchen light, and that's very like warm lighting, so it screws up the colors,
yeah.
So I don't have like all my finesse here, but yeah, I think I do most of that now, and Another thing I've taken up though is I have an iPad, so I've been doing some sketches on an iPad.
Huh.
And that, as you know, you don't need any materials for. It doesn't matter what the light is like. And so I've been using that just for like some sketches, some exploratory work, and that's pretty interesting. So I've been having a fun time with that. The downside of that is that it's technology where it's like you're looking at a screen. You know, everybody talks about, oh, you shouldn't be looking at your screens. And it's like, well, that's unavoidable if you're doing iPad work, you know. So I try to do that a little bit if I don't feel like taking out my brushes, you know. So
Yeah.
that's been like the perfect kind of use case for that, you know.
That's interesting. So you're using, I guess, Procreate or what I.
Yeah, yeah. I'm using Procreate, and I actually had it. I bought it like probably like 7 years ago when it was relatively new, and I never like I tried to use it and I just couldn't. I didn't know how to do it, so I never touched it again. And then when this started happening or staying inside, I was like, oh, I still have it on my iPad. I might as well just try it. And yeah, now I'm like teaching myself how to use it, and I'm not, you know, going exclusive with it, but it's good to. It's the same skills, like it's the same drawing skills. It's the same, you know, you have to like train your eye to do certain things. The only thing it doesn't replicate is like the physicality of paint, you know. Like
On
in
the
some cases it
problems of
does.
watercolor?
Yeah, so they are watercolor brushes that are actually harder to use on Procreate because they're just not very natural. So I actually don't use any watercolor stuff on Procreate.
I see, because that would
Yeah,
be like very, very, very different, right? I
it's
mean,
very different. I mean, some of the effects can look very unique and like original and like it's a natural brush stroke. But I find like the pencils look almost like you can't even tell if it's digital or you know, real. So that's been pretty interesting. So to keep my drawing chops going, I've been sketching on the iPad because you don't need paper, you don't need tons of charcoal or anything, and there's no mess obviously.
what are you
So that's been,
sketching? Are you sketching, um, are you doing studies for your paintings, or are you sketching things that you see in that moment, or what's it?
yeah, yeah. So I've been doing a bunch of different things. So some are just studies for painting, right? So like a cityscape that takes me like 20 minutes and it's just black and white and it's just like getting the values right. But other things, I've been doing some portraits, which I don't typically do, but I have my background was in like figure drawing. So I haven't done that in a while though. So I've been doing portraits just to get the drawing skills a little better. And landscapes, I've done a few cityscapes that are like I would consider like done, you know. But I find that painting those in like real life is a lot more pleasurable, right? It's a better experience. And you can have like paint dripping down and stuff like that. I find like drawing on the iPad is nicer because it's just so easy to get
Mm.
set up, and the mechanics are the exact same, right? But painting is a little different. So you know, portraits are fun to do on an iPad because you can undo when you do something bad, but also you can just keep on going with it. Like I would never probably spend 3 hours just on a single piece of paper
Mm.
finessing a portrait, but on the iPad I would. That's not ideal always, but it's nice to have the option, you know.
How's it for you? So, I mean, usually when you are in your studio, you work very solitary, and I'm assuming that your wife now is at home
Yeah.
working there too. So, how does was that weird, or did that not? I mean, of course, we love our spouses, but I mean, just like getting used to not being alone in a studio and having maybe some, I don't know, background noises or interruptions or getting
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tricky because, um, like as I said earlier, we don't have a huge place, so we've been kind of on top of each other. However, we do have a few separate rooms, so we've kind of just defined like that's your room, this is my room. But when painting, it's like I don't know. I mean, she's kind of used to me painting and focusing for like an hour or so, and so I tend to just put on my music and just do that for like without interruption for an hour. and then I can turn it off and just be like, all right, I'm ready to just hang out or something. But yeah, it's definitely takes getting used to. But I think it's not new for her that I'm a painter, right? So it's not as if
Yeah.
she's never seen all these materials I just brought home. Like she's familiar that I have all these things.
And you're in
And
your zone, and
yeah, yeah, and it's just like natural. I guess that's with anything. When you have a bunch of people in the same room, it's you kind of like, well, if you know each other, like, okay, they're doing their thing right now. I'm doing my thing. So it hasn't been terrible. It has not been bad.
how does it feel to so I know that you also have another job besides being an artist, which a lot of artists have. And are you still working in that job, and now you're working from home? And how is it harder for you to kind of like keep those things like really separated of, okay, this is my artist work job, and this is my other job,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely. So I am still working, and I have the job. I just full time from home. So it's definitely difficult because I used to be able to just turn off and go to like the studio, right, or go outside and paint. But now that's my new office is also
Mm.
my new studio. So it's all mixed into one. So I don't have a ton of stuff here. Like the only thing I need for my job is my laptop. So as soon as I close that,
Mm.
I don't reopen it. So I set boundaries, essentially time boundaries, where I'm like, okay, the laptop's there. I'm just gonna close it, and then done for the night, done for the day, whatever it is, and my painting materials are actually right next to my laptop. So like, if I need to, I can just whip something out. But it's definitely a challenge. But what's helpful is not knowing 100%, but knowing like, okay, this will last for another few weeks. At least the home quarantining will. But obviously, it'll take a few months to get back into anything that resembles like normal.
Yeah,
But even just being able to go outside or go to the studio more often,
yeah.
I think that'll come a lot sooner. So knowing that is helpful.
Has your like so from your work has not really changed. Besides that, you're doing more. Um, let's say the subject matter. You do more portraits now, and you do some work on the iPad. But
Yeah.
you're not like changed your work, or you didn't like I guess you're not doing a lot of acrylic paintings right now either.
Yeah. It was funny because I was in the midst of really getting into acrylic, and it was like bigger canvases and like fun and oh, I've never done this before, and then I abruptly stopped. So the last painting I did, that was like a complete painting, was this nice like canvas acrylic, very like thick paint and very messy, and then it abruptly stopped. So now my style is a bit more. I don't want to say like sketchy, but it is because I have to, do some quick things right in a smaller space with just watercolor. And even with watercolor, I like being messy, like with thick paint. But given my apartment, I can't just throw paint everywhere.
Mm.
So I'm just a little bit more conscious. I think the paintings aren't as kind of out there, like aren't as like bold. I would say it's more sketches and kind of studies. Um, and so that's probably the biggest difference
Mm-hmm.
is it's a little bit more contained.
Or just like what's happening. I mean, with it's an
Yeah,
exact expression of what's going on right now. You're contained, right? So
very contained. So it's funny because I'm very like I get almost all of my inspiration from being outside,
Hmm.
like walking around or going on trips, taking pictures and all that. And now I can't do any of that. Like I can still go for a walk, but I'm very heightened. Like the awareness of like everything is not normal, kind of obscures the like, oh, this is a beautiful thing to paint. Like I'm not thinking about that. I'm mostly thinking about like, oh, I gotta get some exercise. So I've been going through my phone a lot to look at old pictures that I can paint. Whereas, I would normally just go out right now and
Yeah.
either paint or take a picture and paint it right away. Now the inspiration is a little different, right? Because I'm not out as much, and when I'm outside, I'm thinking about, wow, it's so desolate, not necessarily like looking for things to paint, you know?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I actually was I had a phase of I picked up the paintbrush today for the first time in a long time. I mean, I do
That's
all kinds of other stuff to make a living, but I was really not able. Like, I was so because for me it's the same way. I get my inspiration going out, but it's also a way for me because I work from home to clear my head, and and I love just walking around and looking at stuff, and having that taken away in a way, and also whatever what all the things that are behind it, I felt just like I just didn't feel like it.
yeah,
And but then now I'm looking at it, and you put people into your paintings, and my paintings are often just, or most of the time, like 99.9% void of people. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh well, actually not much has changed.
yeah, seriously. Very, very accurate. Yeah. So wild.
Right. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely had like a weird phase of I just can't, because it just reminds me of like what I usually do and walk around, and as like you, I take the photo. If I do, I don't paint outside, I take the photo, and then most definitely it's like almost an instant
Mhm.
painting.
Yeah.
And it's so weird now. I'm going through my photos like you, and it's like, oh yeah, these were better days.
Yeah. Well, what's funny though, another point to that is one of the traps I've seen with this time is getting so hooked on like social media.
Yes.
Because I have an Instagram account. That's my most like that's how I sell a lot of paintings through my Instagram. It's like that's where I post most things, and because it's just so easy. However, and I don't normally look too much at Instagram, you know, like almost like everybody else. But you could easily get into a black hole, right? And just like, oh my God, look at all these different artists. And so now, not having anything to do inside, except obviously you're working and everything, but it's easier to just fall into that black hole on social media and look at what everybody else is painting or what everybody else is taking photos of. And like in the past few days, I've just put it down. I'm like, I'm not even gonna look at Instagram because then you're like, oh well, I should be painting as many things as that person,
Yes.
or why that person still has a studio? Why that's not fair, And it's like, and to avoid these kind of like competition, with other
Yeah.
artists, I'm just like, well, I wasn't doing this before, so I shouldn't be doing it now. And it's just easier to do because you're lying around, nothing to do, and it's also you can. I don't think it's very motivational to look at 50 other artists in one day, which is totally possible to do on Instagram, and just see, oh, everybody else is creating stuff.
Exactly.
Now, it could be like a kick in the butt, but 9 times out of 10, it's not, right?
Exactly.
And
It's the total opposite. Like, I feel the
yeah,
same way. I'm like, oh wow, everyone is like so super frenzy and like
yeah,
working, right? And then it does the opposite to me. It's not a kick in the butt. It's like,
yeah,
oh God, what a slug I am.
yeah, yeah. And so what I've done is like I'm not looking at that stuff. I have like a couple books of artists that I like, and I'm like flipping through them occasionally, but mostly just thinking of my own style because it's easy in these times to start like questioning your own
Mm,
stuff because everybody else, like all there is to do is look at TV or social media, right? And if
right.
you deliberately not do that, then I think it helps the creative process because it's so easy to get trapped into like, what is everybody else doing? Maybe I should draw that. Like, that's easier now than ever, I think. You know.
That is so true. That's a very good point. So John, are you still selling your paintings right now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not selling as often, I'd say, just because I think it's obvious, like essentials are more like necessary right now. But it's funny, I had a commission that I got just before this started going like haywire, but it was still like during this time, and so I have to paint that eventually. But I sold 2 other paintings recently, and I'm like, wow, that's so interesting to people in other countries.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so weird.
Wow.
And I guess it just showed me. I was like, wow, this people are obviously hunkered down, but they're still reaching out because they like a certain painting a lot, you know. And they're like, I really want to have this, but you don't have to ship it to me right now, you know. You can
Aww.
ship it to me later. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. That's so nice. So that's been keeping me going a little bit, knowing like, okay, I can still, you know, make paintings and sell them, and but I'm perfectly prepared to be like, I'm not gonna sell any paintings. You know, like a month ago, I was like, this means I won't be able to sell any paintings
Let's
for a
see
while.
if we can help you though. So if someone would be interested in commissioning or finding a painting that you're already done,
Yeah.
how would they go, and where do we find you, and what do they do?
Well, just, you know, don't take my advice. Just go on Instagram and and find me on Instagram and, you know, send me a message. So that's pretty much how it works. A lot of people just if they follow me or they find me on Instagram and then send me a message, I'm very responsive, because then I'll get a ping on my phone. So it's not like I'm scrolling through the app all the time, but I'll get a notification and then we could chat. But that's pretty much how the best way to do it. And all my work is up to date on there. So
And if people, you said commission, so if people would like to commission you, what are you like? I'm assuming that when someone comes and says, "Can you paint my dog?" you might not do that, or do you?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't do that. I do mostly cityscapes or landscapes, and 9 times out of 10 people will just say, "Oh, I have a picture. I went to this place. Can you paint it?" And that's fine. Yeah, you know. Or what they'll do is, "Oh, I noticed you painted such and such place. Can you do a different version of that for me if it's not available, or if, you know, um, I want like a New York scene. Do you have any
Yeah.
New York paintings?" Or can so it's usually just like a photo or something from a cityscape or like a landscape. A lot of like French landscapes I'll get requests to do.
Yeah,
Um,
so check out John's amazing work. I really love his paintings, and that was the reason why I took a class with him. He was a fantastic teacher, but I could not replicate many years of his experience in
you were
painting.
really good though. You had some good
You're
work.
such a kind guy.
No,
So so check out his Instagram. There, it's really cool. And don't get trapped in comparison. Just commission John or buy a painting
exactly.
from him.
Yes. Good advice.
That was so good to talk to you, John. I
Yeah, it was good to
can't
talk to
wait
you.
to actually see you. Hopefully soon, sometime
Yeah,
in person again. Maybe with 6 feet apart.
I
Who
know.
knows?
I know. Well, maybe. Probably, you know, probably in a few weeks people start getting out and about, you know.
Yeah, hopefully. And you can get back to your studio, which would be great. Thank you so much for taking the time
Of
and
course.
share with us a little bit about your process right now, your artist in residence life.
Of course. Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Bye
All
bye.
right. Take care. Bye bye.